and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day. So we have got a couple returning titles, or titles that have been dormant.
When we say returning, I don't think a new issue of this has actually been out since we started doing these.
Man, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to double check that because
they're pulling up on 2 years. of videos.
Yeah, but this book has been a hiatus for a bit, so we might as well delve right into it.
Yeah,
my pick is Department of Truth issue 23, back from, as we said, the very long hiatus here. So it's funny because we've actually mentioned this book in passing a couple times, talking about Tinian's other books like World Tree, which new issue is also out this week.
Yep.
And Nice House on the Lake, or Deviant. So this series, it's one of the ones that really kind of put him on the map in terms of this is a guy to watch his stuff.
This really blew up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you're not familiar with it, the gist of it is basically what if all the kind of conspiracies in the world, the stuff like cryptids or aliens or government cover-ups, all these things that are on the periphery of existence. What if enough people believe in them, it actually all is real.
Right. So it's not that they were true.
Yeah.
And you're finding out about the fact that they were hidden. It's that if too many people believe the same thing, that thing starts manifesting.
Yeah. For example, the first issue, it gets into enough people go to the Antarctic and want to see an ice wall, and actual ice wall starts to manifest.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrifying for the guy not expecting that to happen. But this issue is the start of a new arc, kind of actually getting into not exactly the origins of the department, because they're the group that basically is in charge of making sure that these things don't happen, that the world more or less goes to plan,
right,
more or less. And the whole arc of this series has been basically the Department of Truth versus these kind of outside groups that are no, it should basically be up to the people to decide, even though the implication is well, that happens, the world might just end.
Yeah.
But so this arc now is kind of flashing back to, without getting, can I say I don't want, part of me doesn't want to reveal who the current director is, because it's a big reveal in the first issue. So if you haven't checked this series out.
Yeah, I mean the covers do kind of give it away.
The cover gives it away a little, but so without getting too much into spoilers, this is kind of about the origin of the current director of the Department of Truth, explaining what happened to basically get him there, how he became an agent, what kind of certain historical incident he was involved with that kind of threw a monkey wrench into everything.
Yeah. So suffice it to say, historical character, infamous.
Yeah.
A lot of conspiracy theories on this person.
It's a character where once you realize once you find out who it is in that first issue, it's just oh, of course it's you. Who else could it be?
Right.
And what I can say is, so in this issue, he meets with the original director, who I completely forgot because it's been a bit. Was Frank Capra, which I love. I because he gives this whole speech about how as a filmmaker, as an artist, how what he brings, because you at first glance just this random guy from Hollywood, he's in charge of this whole government agency, and just oh no, it makes sense. They get into his whole him doing propaganda films during the war and everything, how he's able to basically sell you on the story of America. Once they get into it, just
sure,
oh, this is
okay,
very unsettling and makes sense.
Yep.
And they basically, it's honestly a really fun jumping on point, because they, despite the fact that we're very deep into the run now, they do kind of explain about how everything works in a really succinct way, because our main character is, because it's a flashback, he's just learning about how this all works for the first time. And so it's honestly a good way to introduce readers if they haven't been reading before. I definitely recommend picking up the other volumes. You get all kinds of fun stuff with aliens and Mothmen and all kinds. It basically pick a conspiracy. It probably comes up at some point. But this issue is also delving into the mystery of the Red Woman, who has been like a reoccurring, I don't know if antagonist is quite the correct word, but like she's been like this looming threat over the entire thing. And a previous arc kind of gets into it. If you know anything about the occult, you understand like how dangerous she might be.
Right. Yeah.
But
this is Crowleyan stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly I love this issue because, like I said, like if you have been reading, it's a great return to form. Like they haven't missed the beat. If you haven't read it, but like say you enjoyed their Dracula series they did last year, right. You'll enjoy this. It's like I said, it just does a really good job of like setting up everything that you need to know right away if you haven't read anything before. It's really weird that like a series like this that's like very much about like you need to know this and this thing for a lot of things to make sense, because like they'll just like throw a bunch of conspiracy stuff at you and just like, oh, if you're not familiar with the satanic panic of like the 80s and 90s, then oh well, you're not going to get like this or that thing. But no, this does a really good job of being like, hey, here's the ground floor, this is all you need to know right now, we'll fill you in as we need to go. But also, if I didn't mention before, Simmons Dart is so good in here. Like the very like ethereal, like it doesn't feel like you're quite there, but also like the way the faces work are just like super realistic at the same time. It's like it feels like you're trying to remember a dream.
Oh, sure.
It's just gorgeous. Like of old, like there's a bunch of good looking books on here, and we'll get to more in a bit. But this is easily one of the best looking books you'll find right now. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
No, I can't sing enough praises about, so we might as well just head over to you then.
Sure, yeah. Well, I went with another book that's been on hiatus for a while, or hasn't been published for a while. I went with Marvel Comic Group Godzilla. So this is a facsimile.
Yeah.
Gotta throw that out there right away. Mm-hmm. So Doug Mensch and Herb Trimpe came together on this book, which is not an adaptation of a Godzilla movie, because, spoiler alert, at the very beginning of it, Godzilla is in an iceberg off of the coast of Alaska, and it gets warm enough that spring for it to crack and for him to escape. Yeah,
it does that interesting thing that, like, Marvel used to do with all their license stuff, is just, like, that they're, like, in the Marvel universe, too, still, which is part of why a lot of this stuff hasn't like been in print for so long, because two different companies, like the rights holders in Marvel, they don't really play ball, but now they are. So
right, and so we're starting to see some of this kind of happening, and just with some of these intellectual properties in general, whether Marvel, a lot of them had to do with. Okay, so let's back this up just a smidge. So in the 70s, Marvel was coming off of their huge success in the 60s, where they kind of came out of nowhere, took the comic industry by storm, and established themselves as one of the preeminent comic book publishers, particularly with superhero comics. They firmly, put themselves in direct competition with DC, which nobody had really done in decades. I mean, probably since Fawcett, right? So Marvel in the 70s is starting to struggle financially. Yeah. Stan Lee has gone out to the West Coast. He's not overseeing all of the books anymore. Roy Thomas has taken over. And Roy Thomas gets the idea that, hey, if we start bringing in other properties, a la Star Wars. Star Wars was the big book that really pumped up sales, and then they started looking for other ones. So Godzilla was one of them, and this was a beloved run, comic book run. It also kind of ties in with Marvel at this time was looking to Japan for ideas. So you had Shogun Warriors and a number of other things. They were developing a Spider-Man television show over in Japan, which if you haven't watched that documentary that's available, it's a lot of fun. You should absolutely watch it. I think it's on Disney, right?
Yeah, I mean, even looking at like Claremont's run on X-Men, like, dude was like huge into like Japanese stuff at the time.
And I mean, that was a thing in the 70s and 80s. It was kind of imported Japanese culture was getting really mainstream and popular. So not a shock, but Marvel was capitalizing on it. So what do? They throw two of their biggest names that they've got at this time on this Godzilla book. And, if Godzilla popped up, who would take it on? But, Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos at S.H.I.E.L.D., So it's 70s. I'm not going to quite say it's not schlock, but it's definitely schlockier.
It's very like
now.
Over the top, kind of silly, but like in that way where it's also kind of cool.
Yeah. But Herb Trimpe's art is always worth checking out. Really well known for the beginning of G.I. Joe, his Hulk run, of course. Just one of those iconic artists at Marvel. Does great covers. This cover's awesome with the people shrieking in the foreground as they're running away from Godzilla, destroying a bridge and smashing buildings and blasting flame out of his mouth. And it just gets better inside the book. Now, the facsimiles are really cool because they reprint the book in its entirety, advertisements and all. So it's a fun little trip down memory lane. But this is also a great warm-up to, they're doing a Godzilla omnibus coming up as well.
I think coming out this fall, if I remember right.
Yeah, that sounds, I know that I can't remember if we've done orders for it already or if we've just had the solicits for it come in, but that's going to be awesome. And with those omnibuses, it's a short print run and then they become unavailable. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to let us know so that we can get a copy in for you. But they're doing that on a number of different books. And
they've got next year Transformers and G.I. Joe are coming out, so definitely get those if you can.
Yep, we've got Conan omnibuses are coming out again. They've done the orders for Savage Sword, and I think we did the order for the first Conan the Barbarian, which is being published by Titan, but it's the Marvel stuff. So we're starting to see some of those kind of come around. DC has just announced some new graphic novels. They're not omnibuses, but where they're collecting kind of classic stories from. We were looking at it in the DC Connect this month, where it's got some Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman kind of iconic tales. It's year one for Batman. The Superman stuff is actually his first, 20 or 30 appearances printed in order. And then
real old stuff that you just really can't get your hands on.
Yeah, and then the Wonder Woman stuff is kind of the more recent canon Wonder Woman stuff. So, but so I mean, nothing new here. You certainly could go, although finding a nice copy of Godzilla #1 is going to cost you some money. So this is a great way to be able to pick it up, read it, enjoy it, and then throw it in your collection as kind of a placeholder. And if you're one of those collectors, then when you find the real deal at a good price, you can keep this one for reading purposes. But I love 70s, especially 70s Marvel. There's just such a charm.
They're like, they had such this thing of like just kind of like you were saying, like throwing stuff at the wall, just trying to figure out like what would work, and they honestly gave us a lot of their best stuff. Like,
so we were talking last week in the video about books that take big swings, and so some of the stuff, it was we had a Defenders Epic collection come in, and Allison was asking me about it last night because she wants to read Valkyrie stuff, and I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, this is a weird book. Like,
it's funny because I was actually just talking to my dad about like Gerber's Defenders last night, or this morning.
It's weird. I'm like, I don't know that you'll like Valkyrie's story in this, but they did. They tried some weird things because, it wasn't, they didn't have to report to shareholders. They were just running a comic book business. And so they took some big swings. Some of them missed and didn't age well. And others, like, that's why we've got what we've got today. So, awesome. Well, speaking of returning characters.
So this week, the new Black Label Satana series just started. And I don't know, we talked about this a little beforehand. So, like, I like Mariko Tamaki as a writer. Her stuff is always good. I know she had one of her, like, independent graphic novels I think she made with her sisters nominated for an Eisner this year.
Oh, which one?
I can't remember the name of it offhand, but it's kind of like, I think it's, like, somewhat autobiographical.
Oh, okay.
Every time I've seen, like, articles about it, it looks really good. But, really like her as an artist. Obviously love Satana as a character. All that said, my biggest thing I want to check this out for, I love Javier Rodriguez's art. Like, previously he did a couple Defenders runs with Al Ewing. I had several of those on here. Like, his art, he's just one of those guys where, like, I don't care like what the comic is. If I see he's doing, I'm just like, I'll probably have to check this out, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and it didn't disappoint in that aspect, and also Tamaki's story here is very interesting. So it being Black Label, that means that it's outside of Zatanna's story arc in main DC continuity right now, which allows us to tell a totally different story for this character.
Yeah, like we were talking, taking like swings, like that's one of the best things about Black Label books is when they can just get like, they can get weird with it. And this book does get weird with it, like,
yes,
in terms of like I said, with Rodriguez is like the way he like draws things, but also with like Tamaki, the way she's like taking the character. Like, she's very much still like, if you know Zatanna, like there's still that in here, but like this is very much the Zatanna who's like not wanting to be a superhero. Like this is like, she's like, I've got my little residency here in Vegas. That's all I want to do. I don't care about any of this magic stuff. Just let me like do funny parlor tricks.
Yeah, let me do tricks.
Yeah,
and to the point where she's even turning down other bigger casinos offers. She wants to kind of stay in this safe lane. That she's in.
And the implication is that like, in the past, maybe like using magic hasn't like worked out the best for her.
Yeah,
maybe she's made some mistakes.
Yes. We also get a glimpse. Yeah, so we get some flashbacks to her childhood and an interaction with her father, and then we get a big reveal at the end of the book. There's mysterious figures lurking around. There's some of her assistants acting strange.
Yeah.
I also really, and I know that we've touched on this on a number of times on a number of other books, but the coloring in this book is so good. There's a scene where she goes into her dad's study, parlor, I don't know, and it's like there's a blacklight poster behind. I mean, it's not. That's like, not what it is, but they had that vibe, like, and it like glowed.
The mood of everything just like instantly changed. Like the way that they're able to like very clearly put you in like the space, like in a space just off the color palette. Like it's so good. Like
there's like a leaded glass lamp in his office or something that.
Oh, Rodriguez also colored it.
Oh, well, that explains it. That tracks.
Yeah, and then like also even like the flashback stuff almost has this like kind of like faded color to like it's still definitely the same palette, but like it's a little more like washed out. Like
it's washed out, but it's also at the same time it's extremely vibrant. It's like it's like. It does though. It's got that kind of flashback film aspect to it. That kind of faded out a little bit to make it seem like it happened a while ago. And I kind of had I saw a preview of the book, so I had an inkling of what it was going to look like. But the cover is just very emblematic of what you're going to get inside as far as the aesthetics of the book. Great color palette, great vibrancy. I really, really enjoyed the story. There is something much, much larger afoot, and it's going to be fun to go down that rabbit hole.
Without getting to spoilers, like some of this, like obviously a lot of the other solicits for the series have come out, and definitely sounds like things are going to get worse before they get better for her.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the Black Label stuff in general.
Yeah, like anytime, like because pretty much all the stuff they've been putting out is good, but like when it's really good, it's really good. Swamp Thing, Green Hell. Very much enjoyed that one. Yeah, Wonder Woman, Historia, when they hit, they really hit. Like this is just like exactly what you'd want from a comic,
right? And it's also a continuation of we had kind of bemoaned that DC a while back pulled back a lot of their stable of characters and weren't really giving a lot of exposure to other characters, and now we're getting back Green Arrow and the Birds of Prey, and I know that this isn't in mainline continuity, and the Zatanna in mainline continuity has been popping in here and popping in there, but we're starting to get more solo stories for some of these other characters that aren't Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman.
I'm super excited. They just announced a new Black Label Plastic Man book of all things.
Yes.
Like
who's doing the art on that one?
There's like two different guys, because there's like one who's doing like the context for that book is like something's happened to make his powers go wonky. So there's one guy handling like the body horror parts of it, but then another guy doing like a more like classic Silver Age stuff for it. And it's going to be written by Christopher Cantwell, who. Yeah. We've mentioned him on here a couple times. Like his stuff's always great.
Yeah, so good. All right, well, what about your backup picks, they almost made it.
Oh, almost made it. I would give a shout out probably to both the new issue of Blood Hunt and Moon Knight today. Big turning point there. I would say if you're getting both, probably read Blood Hunt first. Just go that way, because there's like the end of Moon Knight like kind of spoils like the halfway point of this.
Yes.
So like, but yeah, both are great. You find out a bit more about like what's actually going on with like Blade and all this, and like it's cool and terrifying, and it had a very specific thing that made me laugh in a way I don't think I was supposed to laugh. But well, we talked about before, like the voice that I imagine.
Oh yeah. I can't tell you the part that I thought either.
Yeah,
it was so good.
Yeah, but no, those...
come into the store after you've read it. And ask us how we heard those. Those characters once they were revealed. Yeah.
But no, what were your honorary picks?
Well, both of those, and I actively avoided both because I feel like we had to get a little more variety.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff out there, and we've been picking a lot of the same titles because they've been exemplary.
Yeah.
But Jed MacKay is just doing exceptionally well with everything that he's doing at Marvel right now. I also enjoyed Thanos. I just picked it up as kind of on a whim, and I like Thanos as a character, and I enjoyed the Cantwell stuff. But this is the beginning of a story that's got roots to older stuff, but it was a good jumping on point for him taking on the Infinity Gems that are now people.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of event books with Blood Hunt, the new like kind of like, I guess you could say like issue 0 for DC's new event Absolute Power also dropped this week.
Yeah.
So that if you're looking to get into that one, it's a great little jumping on point, introducing like some of the main players and characters.
Yeah.
It's fun getting to like see some of these lesser known characters. Like I don't want to say like there's one character that showed up where I had to look up like, who is this now? Like I love when they make those deep cuts. Like,
well, and DC's got some ability to do super deep cuts. So and this is a good one to pick up too, because there are tendrils going into lots of other books. Superman, Batman, that are kind of culminating into this Green Arrow, and this will kind of help prep you for if you haven't been reading all of those books, especially Batman. If you haven't been reading Batman, this will help. So excellent. Well. It's a massive week. I know we've been saying that a lot, but this we had to push stuff off the shelf just to be able to get all the periodicals up. There's a ton of stuff this week. This is the biggest week we've had. Certainly,
you barely had enough. You barely had enough room to like lay everything out when you were receiving stuff. I
had to completely redo the layout for how we had books, and then I had to overlap some because it's just a massive number of titles. So get in here, check it out for yourself. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe. We will be back next week with more picks. Until then, enjoy the reading.